Hola! So this video is not going to be on the presentation of a finished object. Instead, this video is on the topic of unfinished objects. Now, I love going to the fabric store and looking through the pattern books. I find them very inspiring, and some of my cooler projects have kind of come from these little mental what-ifs. This thing that I have sitting in front of me is one such project. Now, back when I first decided to do YouTube videos, or at least film my existing efforts for YouTube, I was at the very beginning of starting a jacket that was intended to become a Halloween costume. However, as we're sitting, 2 weeks from Thanksgiving, obviously that did not get done on time. So what I have sitting before me is a mock-up. Now, it's not a finished object, but it was a whole lot of work and I learned a great deal, and so I wanted to present it as both an unfinished object and something that is eventually, going to become something that could be quite fun. The jacket itself is, pattern-wise, kind of a costumey, steampunky knockoff of what is essentially an 18th century frock coat. Fitted through the bodice, buttons at the front, flared skirt, somewhat rounded shoulders. It's a frock coat. As far as what to actually make this frock coat from, I have no idea what direction it's going to go. But that said, I learned a great deal. I have a lot to learn on it. I apparently now need to learn how to alter a pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and present to you guys the unfinished object, if only in an effort to show that, it's okay to not finish things when you thought you would, and it's okay to share the process. So here is how I got as far as I have, and kind of where I have to go. Thank you so much, and here we go.
Okay, time to cut out patterns. Now, cutting out patterns can take a while. You can spend an entire evening, like I am here, just cutting out patterns. And if you were a better seamstress than I am, one could begin transferring a little bit of information about one's own measurements onto the pattern at this stage. Pattern makers are working from sort of an assumed number series of numbers when they build these patterns, which may or may not, and more likely do not, fit your particular body. Another pro tip here is that I like to keep all of the pieces of the pattern that I'm actively working with stored in their own little bag. I keep the rest of the pattern in its original packet, stored off to the side somewhere, and only really have the pieces that I'm going to be working with out and about. That way, if I need to refer back to the pattern to figure out what I'm supposed to do at a certain point, I'm only digging through the stuff I really need.
So, I'm new to the realm of making mock-ups of projects. This is the first time I've actually gone through the process of making a muslin, and I really feel like you're supposed to probably iron this, so I'm just taking a little time and doing it because I feel like if I don't, all of these wrinkles and such are going to cause warped pieces, which makes any alterations I do inherently flawed, thus any alterations I do on the pattern ain't gonna be quite right. So perhaps it is obsessive, but I'm really invested in this jacket coming out nicely. So I feel like just pressing it out just a little bit, not being obsessive, it's just a mock-up, don't get obsessed. But I feel like this will be helpful in making sure this all goes good.
And here we are, beginning the process of cutting out the mock-up. I realized later on, as I was attempting to put this video together, that I don't actually have much in the way of footage of me actually sewing this together. I don't exactly know how that got missed, but it did. Which is odd, because that's the fun part, right? That said, the stage here is cutting out the fabric, which admittedly I'm going to have to do a second time with whatever fabric I end up purchasing when it comes time to do the real coat. This is a great stage if you're a better seamstress than I am to start figuring out exactly what alterations you want to apply to the fabric, because you'll already have done a mock-up. Additionally, something that you can do, as I am doing here and did not do the first time through, was transfer any markings from the pattern to the fabric you're working with. In the case of the mock-up, I'm actually doing this with a ballpoint pen, but in your real fabric, you can use tailor's chalk. Getting the old sewing machine threaded. A sewing machine is a robot that is really good at doing absolutely one thing, but you do have to absolutely thread it correctly and get to know your machine to have a harmonious relationship where you actually remain productive. Now, as this was my first jacket, I was absolutely puzzled as to how these pieces are supposed to pin together. They obviously fit when you lay them down on the table like I have here, but when it comes time to, lay one on top of the other, pin them together so that they can be sewed in 2D, I was completely begobsmacked as to how this was supposed to work and had to cut the camera off out of pure frustration so I could sit and figure this out in peace. That said, I did get it going, and once that started rolling, I managed to get most of the jacket sewed actually pretty quickly.
Okay, so this is the mock-up of the jacket. It fits, it goes on, it fits kind of. I feel like the collar situation is too tall relative to my neck length. This is ridiculous. It comes together okay here, but not here, which is a very common problem for me. The waistline seems to end here, and again, it does come together at this, but right through the ribs is where clothing tends to need to be let out for me. Because it has so many panels, there's a seam here, there's a seam here, there's the side seam, and similar numbers of panels in the back of the jacket. There's plenty of places to let it out, but I really don't know what I'm doing with that. I've never made a jacket, and so I am a little puzzled about where to start making adjustments to the pattern. It is also way long on me. It's going to have a very cool superhero-esque swoop, but I'm pretty short relative to how big around I am, and so commercial patterns tend to read very long on me. Somehow the sleeves fit fine, but the length is not great. So it just needs to kind of be let out and then shortened in the skirt before I dedicate to making this jacket again out of real, probably significantly more expensive fabric. So I need to figure out exactly what alterations I want to make. I need to get them transferred onto an actual pattern. I need to purchase fabric plus notions to remake this, and then go through, cut out the altered version of it, and put a second one together.
That all said, this is my mock-up. This is what will one day become a frock coat. While it has some things that I need to change about it, obviously I need to make the alterations I mentioned. At the end of the day, what an incredible learning experience. And what a cool jacket this is really going to become. So thank you for checking it out, and I'll catch you on the other side.